Now, because mainstream media is positively useless when it comes to anything not propagandized and corporatized, we the people have to turn to alternative media. You know, the search results that did show up when you Googled that shit? In this digital age, countless alternative media outlets, oftentimes through volunteer or underpaid hours, work tirelessly to educate and engage, investigate and report, dig for complete and breaking stories regardless of who they piss off. As the corporatized media falls ever further into an abyss of mindless talking heads and one-sided diatribes, these alternative outlets provide us with the real news, the truth in a sea of lies. They are the adversarial press that every democracy requires. One such alternative media outlet is Mint Press News. Started back in 2009 by independent journalist Mnar Muhawesh, what began as a personal blog seeking to report on more than just hyper-localized cream puff stories, Mint Press soon grew to become a globally recognized watering hole for straightforward, honest, no-bullshit news. This past week, I had the pleasure of speaking with Mnar Muhawesh about Mint Press, the role of alternative media, and the life of an activist entrepreneur, from death threats to juices and coloring books. Take a look. Mint Press started as a personal blog.
Yep.
Why did you feel the need to report on what was happening in your area in the Midwest on a personal blog?
Because I actually started my career in local media for local news stations, and I was writing, very hyper local issues. And I always felt like they were sensationalized issues and not very important issues in the sense that I thought was important. I come from a very diverse background. I grew up and lived under Israeli apartheid and occupation. So I saw what war does. And so I was always very attached to the anti-war narratives of news reporting. And so when I started working in local news, I realized that, I wasn't really fulfilling my passion and my desire to kind of give the story that needs to be told. We should be looking at a lot of global stories and national stories to help unify us as a people and to understand each other. On a local level, people don't really know what's going on in the world around them. They feel very far away. They feel like, what's different is so different. I mean, they just don't see the similarities between us and other people.
What have you seen as an activist entrepreneur in alternative media? You've been on the front lines for many of these changes in the past, like since 2009 when Mint Press took off. How would you describe the activist environment in the country since that time, and how do you see the alternative media being a pushing force in that?
What I noticed the most is this thirst for information, this thirst for real information. The media, as defined by our Constitution and by our First Amendment rights, is to give a voice to the public and to hold those in power accountable. And so once I started to notice and realize how the media was not doing that, I slowly but surely started to become more active in the activism community. And then I realized that journalism, in its essence, is a form of activism, if you're doing it the right way. And so I've never been traditionally a part of an activist group, but I believe that my work in journalism is a form of activism in shaping the way that people see stories and issues that are being completely, dried down by the media. We're trying to provide a real voice and a real perspective to the stories that people feel very out of touch with.
I've seen that there's been several, particularly with what happened in Syria and how Mint Press reported on that. You've gotten a lot of shit, for lack of a better word. You've gotten a lot of shit from mainstream media and from the powers that be. So talk a little bit about how does that affect your work? Do you feel a little uncomfortable getting this unwanted attention from the powers that be?
I always really felt this need to always speak up for Muslims and victims of our wars and U.S. intervention. And so after I became a journalist, I actually started to wear hijab. So hijab is a new concept for me. And once I started to do that, and I started to work in journalism, I became the first American to wear the hijab on American television, to anchor and report the news. So I was breaking these barriers. But when you're the first in something, you're always going to find those arrows kind of pointing at you. This is kind of what happened after we broke our story, broke a lot of stories actually on US foreign policy and intervention in the Middle East, and especially when it comes to Syria. The focus, instead of being on our actual reporting, has turned into, well, who is this hijabbed Muslim person? And as we know, the media is so busy fear-mongering and war-mongering. The easiest thing to do to discredit a story is to put down, to kill the messenger. And in this case, it was me. When people go out and attack the story instead of talking, or attack the messenger instead of actually talking about a story, these are usually signs that they're trying to hide, they're trying to silence them and hide the truth.
So do you sort of use that as fuel? Like when people personally attack you, you sort of use that as fuel to keep going because you know that you're getting to the core issue?
Absolutely. And I talk about it a lot. I talk about, why is there so much effort for these character assassinations? What I'm actually trying to do right now is, which I have a lot of support for, which I'm very grateful. I'm actually building a foundation called the Journalism Support Network, which is specifically an Amber Alert for journalists. And so we want to provide this support system for journalists in times when they're being attacked, times when really nasty articles are being written about them, instead of having the national discourse be about what they're reporting on and the issues that they're tackling. The conversation becomes about them. We want to be able to send out an Amber Alert about these journalists and kind of act somewhat and a little bit as not just a support system, but a little bit of a PR arm for journalists. A lot of us independent journalists, we don't have a lot of funding. We don't have a lot of money, so we don't have these large PR organizations or marketing firms to help defend us. We have to do it on our own, and so that's what we hope to do with the Journalism Support Network. And I'm starting that and hopefully launching it very soon.
Since you started Mint Press, how have you seen the role of alternative media grow and actually get people to turn away from apathy and turn towards being more active and aware about local and global issues?
Well, we're experiencing a independent media revolution. We really, really are. I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of news organizations, independent and alternative, have basically started since 9/11. With this media revolution, a lot of things have shifted. First of all, the war narratives, people are starting to understand what is driving war. With the Iraq war specifically, more people were on board because there wasn't a lot of alternative media. It was a very small anti-war group of people. We did have a community, but it was very small. And so it was very easy to manipulate people and convince them that we're going to save people in the Middle East and Iraq and spread some American democracy. And now, when it comes to Syria, for example, when the media tried to lay out the same narrative, like, hey, the Assad government is using chemical weapons on his people, and we must go save the Syrian people. Well, the media, we saw the national discourse change because of alternative media. Now that we have the power of the internet, we're able to share these stories more and change the national discourse.
If I was somebody that had no political standing as of yet, how would I get engaged with alternative media and start to shift my paradigm?
Well, right now, like for example, I'll give you an example that we're doing at Mint Press. We launched a citizen journalism-led blog called My MPN Blogs, and it's actually, the purpose is exactly what you just mentioned, which is to get regular people more involved in the media and to bring power back into our hands, the people. When you inform people, people become more motivated to take action. The problem right now is that people aren't informed enough, and that's why there's inaction. But the more people that are aware, the more action that we're going to see. And I think it really is starting. It's happening now. We're starting to see a shift in information, a shift in people's awareness of these issues, and it's because of independent media.
I'm also curious, sort of an interesting shift because of the work that you do is very intense, and you obviously spend so much time on it, and you dig deep into very uncomfortable and oftentimes depressing stories. How do you unplug from this this intense work that you do, and how would you suggest that people get into the activist lifestyle without completely drowning in these depressing, like, real stories?
Well, it's funny that you say that. I'm very happy because I get that a lot. They say, for somebody who's surrounded by all this depressing news, how do you manage to, and somebody who's all constantly being attacked, how do you manage to keep a smile on your face? And first of all, I found catharsis in pursuing journalism. I found that courage in being able to speak up for those who don't have a voice. So journalism and covering the issues that we cover is my passion. And although it is very depressing, the kind of things that we cover, when we bring attention to the infringements on our rights and to war profiteering and the issues with corporatism, um, I find the courage and the catharsis to speak up for those who don't have a voice. And this somehow makes me feel fulfilled as a journalist. And so what I do and what a lot of people do is, my outlet is, and I was telling you this earlier, is coloring. And I know I sound like a 12-year-old girl saying this, but I love to color. And I have a 5-year-old son, and we sit down and we color together. And you have to do it. You have to kind of get the creative juices flowing in your brain and throughout your body, and to relax and really get in touch with your creative self. And something that I also do is I do a lot of hiking. I love to be outside in nature. I could probably spend my entire day outside. If I could work outside, I would. I'd be sitting under a tree every single day. And I also juice. I really believe in taking care of myself.
And that's interesting too that you're talking about, being a mother and hiking, and this goes back to that concept of the things that connect us all. Like how many mothers are there out there who sit and color with their sons, or how many people are there that just want to sit under a tree and write? Like, it's that concept of connectivity that just gets sort of whitewashed in our daily lives, particularly in the U.S. For more on Mnar Muhawesh and Mint Press News, visit the link below.